Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are located down the street, the other side of the world here in America. Uh, Changing the name of this, the Bible Minds guy. I'm back. Been a while. And so we're just going to get right into it. A little bit less background information on this. Because a bunch of things have happened and made me think about doing something that I've thought about for a while. Even had a friend allude to maybe doing a video like this, and I didn't want to, but it's kind of bubbled up inside over the last few years, especially. And I want to use some illustrations that have happened this year. That one I alluded to about doctrine in the largest convention we have for Bible believers, the Southern Baptist Convention. And I'm going to go sports with the other one because it's something that everyone does pay attention to. I don't as much as I used to, but I do follow college football still. It's pretty much the only sport I still do follow to any degree. Don't watch the games every weekend, but I do check out YouTube stats and things like that. So that's going to be the backdrop. We are going to be in the book of Ezekiel today. Yeah, so we're way off the New Testament. And the verse that I'm going to use to just, be a synopsis of what I want to talk about is Ezekiel 9, verses 3 through 5. So do have to do a little background work so you know what's going on. We'll do it quickly. I'm not going to get to what the whole book is because there's 38 chapters, and Ezekiel's probably the hardest book to comprehend in the Bible, maybe outside of Revelation. So we're not going to discuss what it all means. But in this section, it is when Ezekiel is called. He's called to be a watchman, I believe, in chapter 2. And in 3 and 4, he begins his ministry, so to speak, by prophesying to Israel and Judah, telling them, famously laying on one side for 390 days and laying on another side for 40 days. Obviously, I'm skipping a lot of details. And that has already happened to tell Israel that you're going to be punished for 390 years, and Judah, you're going to be punished for 40. And now he gets these series of visions, and some of them are very heavenly. It involves what's going on up there. They're stories to illustrate things to Israel. So it's a really complicated book. But in the middle of one of these illustrations, I found this section of verses that give us something to talk about in terms of God bringing judgment. Because the truth is, he already has. This is why I probably didn't want to make this video. Is God going to judge America? No, we're in the middle of it right now. So let's go to our text first, and I'm probably going to say a bunch of things that are not going to be totally expository about this text, but I'm using it as a text to illustrate this principle about groaning for the true believers, and that's what I want to hone in on. So, but let's read. Now, this is a man clothed in linen that Ezekiel saw in a vision that is speaking to Ezekiel. There's some conversation back and forth. That's the backdrop of this. So I'm jumping in the middle. Now, verse 3. Now the glory of the God of Israel has gone up from the cherub on which it rested to the threshold of the house. Like I said, Ezekiel's seeing the cherub from heaven. And he called to the man clothed in linen, who was a part of this vision as well, who had the writing case at his waist. And the Lord said to him, so the Lord spoke to the man in linen and gave him something to do. And this is what he told him to do. Pass through the city, through Jerusalem, and put a mark on the foreheads. Yes, that is mentioned in Revelation as well. Not going to go into that, but for your study, pay attention because it's also mentioned in Revelation, the mark on the foreheads. Of the men who sigh and groan over all the abominations that are committed in it. And to the others, he said in my hearing, pass through the city after him and strike. Your eyes shall not spare, and you shall show no pity. Further verses, I'm not going to read the rest of the chapter. You can on your own time. It even says, do not spare the women and children. God's not happy. There is some really scary stuff mentioned in here. But I want to focus on the mark on the foreheads of the men who sighed and groaned over all the abominations that are committed in Jerusalem. And I've already told you, I'm jumping. I'm not going to explain this. It could just layer it through other videos, but we're there. So I want to show you how we are there, because you may see the abominations, because people know folks are now wanting to change their gender. That's bad. You already know that, though. What you probably didn't know is that is not something that's leading to judgment. That is one of the judgments. So you probably want to be a person that's sighing and groaning and not celebrating this at the very least. All right, so what is sighing and groaning, basically? Well, it is the idea that you want, like, to illustrate modern day terminology, when you hear when we talk about sports world, which I will in a second, all the dopey talking heads on ESPN who are walking around with suits and sneakers and acting like school children, that you just want them to stop. You're not mad really anymore. You guys quit embarrassing yourselves, and it would be nice if you just shut up. Just go away. You can't take it anymore. It is watching mankind get debased to where we are today is hard to watch. And it's not funny. I don't rejoice in it. I don't want vengeance. I'm not really even mad about a couple people that I'll mention. Are you kidding me? You guys should know better. It's just stop. Just please stop being an embarrassment to yourself. That's kind of the idea. That means I just can't take it anymore. I'm just tired of the abominations. I'm tired of people not doing what they say they're going to do. That we can't even get natural order right. We can't even get man, woman correct. What this is terrible. So let me illustrate what I'm talking about, and we'll start with sports. This year, obviously, as a college football guy, I heard about Deion Sanders every day for a year. You probably guess I wasn't really a fan of the guy. It's hard to not use him as an example when at a point in the beginning of the season, this guy actually on national television jumped around like a school kid because The Rock showed up to game day and jokingly took his hat off and knelt down in front of him. Come on, man. Could you try to show some dignity, for crying out loud? Please don't claim to be a Christian and act like you're so excited because the WWE champion showed up to game day. Have some class. Do you not have any self-respect? Stop it. And now so what the judgment is you say, how dare you? I'm going to choose either to hate on the haters that hate Deion or hate on Deion. Then you're under judgment. You should recognize what God has done and what he did in Israel and what he's doing now to say, don't you see how bad it's gotten? Would you like to just say, Father, I'm sorry? Because that's what I'm after. You choose anything else, you're just going to get lost. And so to end it with my example with Deion got Sport Person of the Year in Sports Illustrated. Not just football, not coach, man, woman, and child, high school, pro, tennis, basketball, football, soccer in Europe. Sport Person of the Year. And they finished dead last in the conference, and he won 4 games. Are you kidding me? It's not hating on someone to say you probably could have found somebody else to be Sport Person of the Year that accomplished something. What's the more important one about being given over to judgment and being an embarrassment? I think you should pray for Deion because Neon's not a Christian. He's involved in a prosperity type of cult, truth be told. It's tough because he's such a celebrity. It's hard to say that he's not a willing participant in it, but he's not a preacher of it. So in my mind, we can still pray for him and hope he turns. But he's not a leader of men, and I think everybody with 2 functioning brain cells can see that. It's embarrassing. So let's talk about something more important in the realm of theology. I alluded in another video about Rick Warren, and a while ago he was kicked out of the Southern Baptist Convention. The truth is he pretty much kicked himself out. When you overtly ordain women on the stage of your church and publicize it, and then go to the convention and brag. And during his speech, he bragged about how many churches he planted in the Southern Baptist Convention, essentially saying, in California, I am the Southern Baptist Convention. So when you thumb your nose at somebody and then brag, it's not like the Southern Baptist Convention showed some guts here. You pretty much had to kick this guy out. And he is not even the worst of some of these guys. The guy in Elevation is overtly an Andrew Womack crony at this point. You can check out what he's been caught doing. This guy has betrayed the cross of Christ and done it on purpose and made a career out of it. He is not a pastor or a Christian by any stretch of the imagination. To call him a pastor is an embarrassment. So why am I bringing up Rick? Because now we have people, when judgment has come down, their minds are so darkened that they don't know the difference between an abomination and a sin. And they also think that women preaching is a doctrinal issue. Hey, dummy, it's not. This is a natural theology issue. The book of Amos had women running things and running their men, and he mentions it in that book. I'm not going to give you, look it up for yourself if you're one of these people that don't like what I'm saying. Show some diligence and just look it up, okay? It's in Amos. Yeah, women were running a lot of Israel. Ezekiel mentions it about female prophetesses that he had to, one of the testimonies in another portion of this book was silence them because there was that many. Rome, I've mentioned this in a previous video, had a historian that was quoted of saying, Rome rules the world and Rome is ruled by our women. Every pagan society's most powerful goddess was a woman. So, hey, Rick, every civilized society that went into the toilet was because they switched the roles of men and women. That's why we don't need to talk about ordaining female preachers, smart guy. It's not an issue. It is to you because you're not a pastor and you don't know anything. That we need to say this now. Number 2, if you will look up his little spiel that he did at the Southern Baptist Convention floor, he told you he hasn't been a believer for years, because he made a reference of the fellowship that he had. He said, we have disagreeing points. And he said, I even have fellowship of people that don't believe that Jesus died for the whole world. Here's me laughing again, little Rick. You're not that smart. Wink, I know what you were doing. The doctrine of faith is election. We've talked about this. God says that he ordains your salvation from the beginning of time. He gives you free will to choose. What is your response? I don't know, but I believe it. You put it on the shelf and move on. What Rick was saying is he doesn't believe that because he's not a Christian. And so he thought he was being slick by referencing John 3:16 and skating out the side door and trying to say, well, I have fellowship with people that I disagree with about the doctrine of election. Well, that's because you're not a Christian. We've gone over that. It's the faith doctrine. It's one that you have to believe because it doesn't make sense to you. But God is loving and he is in charge of salvation, and he said so. I don't understand it, but I'm not God. I have to believe it. And it's one of the things that you're never going to wrap your mind around. We didn't have to debate about this years ago. So when you have people that are preachers, or claim to be, and can't get natural theology right, and actually think they have a doctrinal debate about females being in charge of men in the church, you probably should quit listening to him. He's an embarrassment. They all are. And it's not funny anymore. It's what sighing and groaning is. You're like, well, Derek, you're talking about it now because somebody's got to talk about it. And you deciding between all these narratives means you're not repentant and you're not getting it. You don't decide between blue lives and black lives and Wall Street and Main Street and big oil and small town America. You don't get a flag with a blue line, a red line, a green line, and a white line on it. You don't pick a side between two fights. Let me explain this to you folks that are trying to understand what's going on. Christian, liberals are not the enemy. They're the distraction. They always have been. Rick Warren has been your enemy for a long time, and the many that are like him. Liberals are the distraction. Saul Alinsky's little manual told you. Liberals should be prayed for. They're being used as fodder. Nobody cares about them. Even the celebrities, they're going to be cast aside. You probably shouldn't pity the folks that have gone the way of the charismatic pastor. You have willingly taken the Judas doctrine and betrayed the cross of Christ. I don't know if there's any salvation for you anymore. Yeah, I hope you were deceived. I hope you didn't go start these movements with your eyes wide open. Please, God, tell me you didn't. Because you're in trouble if you did. Your days are numbered. Tell me you didn't understand. God can have mercy on you if you were just stupid. Everybody has been. Tell me you didn't do this on purpose. Rick, Stephen Furtick, tell me you didn't do it on purpose. For your own soul, tell me you didn't. You're in trouble if you did. The judgment is that absolutely ridiculous, embarrassing examples of leadership are not just in the world, but being allowed to be called Christian. Embarrassing. Because it hurts people that are not aware of all this. There is genuinely good people that are walking in and out of the sports world and may actually, like Dion, so to speak, and people that genuinely think I'm crazy for saying stuff about Rick Warren because they haven't done their due diligence. You pray for those people. Well, but the you notice the text is the people that were sighing and groaning. The judgment, as far as the ones that were leading and had their eyes wide open, it was over. Another text to illustrate this judgment thing that should sober you is Judas was pretty much dead where he stands according to the text. You remember, he tried to repent and couldn't. That ought to scare you to death. That you can make a decision that will darken your mind and your soul to the fact that God can't talk to you anymore. You're done. Now, as a man, I don't know when that is. I don't know whether it is 100% someone that betrays the cross of Christ and preaches a false gospel, or whether you can turn from that. I tend to believe there's a line that I don't know and only God does, because I still want to pray for people. But there's a lot of folks that are dead people walking now. We have so many things that 100 years ago, almost everybody would agree would probably keep you out of heaven. And we have barreled past that. And because of that, we're left with, rather than the judgment bringing repentance, we have doubled down and say, well, everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. Don't say nothing, Derek. Please don't say nothing. Everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. You ought to read the rest of Ezekiel. Some of the stuff that God talks about is brutal. It's brutal. And if he's loving and you believe that as a Christian, it means it's also just. And another thing that happens when you're given over to judgment, you have people crying for justice. That's a really bad deal for you. That's a really bad deal for me. Justice is bad in terms of God. Nobody that's a Christian is screaming for justice. Mm-mm. Don't want that. That's hell. You need to start thinking about this stuff. I don't know how to end this in a positive way. Actually, yes, I do. I don't know if I should, but I always try to end with my little phrase, so I will. So I'm going to do a few more minutes of positive, as much as I can when this, I know. And we'll go back to the sports world. Some of you, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but my college football thing is I grew up a Michigan fan. No, again, like I illustrated, don't really watch all the stuff as much as I used to, but obviously I paid attention this year and a little bit in the last 2 years because Michigan's been very good. I'm going to tell you, I'm just doing this to end on a good note and give you something encouraging to think about. That's the opposite of the bad stuff, and there's many more in the sports world. I got to tell you, Michigan has been an astounding example of a football team in the last 3 years. They play together. It's hard not to like these guys. It's easy as a fan. I'm happy they're winning, but I had so many guys come back. They seem to celebrate together. They genuinely love their coaches and their players, and they just don't have an ego. It's been a joy to watch, and I've followed some things that in regards to former players doing podcasts or something, and I'll check out some minutes of it from time to time. And I've noticed a occurring theme of a few guys that used to play there. They even mention about how different this group of guys is, and it's just been a joy to watch. So in this era of selfishness and money and ego and bad doctrine and all the abominations we're witnessing, in the midst of it, there's been a good story of a really quality football team that does it the right way. And so kudos to them. On the side note, looks like it'll be a pretty good college football playoff. Michigan's going to get Bama. This is what they wanted. You know, you be the best, you got to beat the best. No disrespect to Florida State, but Bama's the standard. They still are. And, you know, Texas beat Bama, and you got undefeated Washington. Well, it looks like a pretty good playoff. It looks like some good teams, too. So we'll end with that. And I ended with that because ultimately we do have to look to the good. Scripture tells us to do that. Meditate on what is good, what is noble, what's praiseworthy, what's excellent, and there's 3 or 4 more. I'm paraphrasing right now, but it's in Philippians. If you want to check that out. And we're called to do that, so I want to do that and relate it to what we're talking about. So even in sports, what an admirable team this year. Just a joy to watch and a good group of guys. So you need something good. Meditate on something good. That's good. So we'll end with that. You know, I want to apologize for coming down so hard, but I don't know if I had a choice. Yeah, it's bad. So see, there I am. I'm back to bad. Let's end with the good football team in Michigan football. and what's been going on in my life and my family's life. So, and thank you for my church family and the good things that have been done for us. So we'll end with that. As always, you be of good cheer and you be of good courage. Until